against such external attacks? Who has the security architecture in his command? Is it Fubara? Yet he said that the governor, that there was something that happened and the governor didn't do anything. What do you expect the governor to do? Is he in charge of the army? Can he give the army any instruction? Or can he give the police any instruction? Who does he have to give instruction to them to say, go and tackle this thing? And the police issued a statement today. The police said it was an electrical fault and that they went there and saw it. And they issued a statement. So where did the Mr. President get his own security report to come and say that this is what happened? No, the matter is that the whole matter is that it is premeditated. He has already planned it. He wants Fubara to go out because Fubara refused to listen to him. Fubara is not expected to listen to him. Fubara is expected to listen to the good people of River State. He is not. We are of two different political parties. He cannot be listening to you because you are Mr. President. He has to listen to the dictates and what the good people of River State want. And what he is trying to do is to shape River State. Within a very small time, he has been able to make so many changes in the structure and administration of River State. He has been able to improve the IGR of River State. So many things. Yet, Wike came out to say that the only two reasons why there will be no impeachment is that if Fubara agrees to leave local government for him, and secondly, if Fubara will not contest, sign an agreement that he will not contest in 2027. These are the two conditions we can give. Now, is that not sufficient enough for us to know that the synergy between Mr. President and Wike is very clear? And even the man that they put here is Wike's friend. You can see all the pictures under in the internet. There is Wike's friend that they put as the sole administrator. So Mr. President has already, when as a president you have taken sides, and what you are doing is not justice, fairness, and justice. Everybody knows. You don't need to tell anyone. When you are trying to muster justice, people will know. In this case, Mr. President is totally biased. His speech is totally out of point. It does not reflect the true situation of things in Rivers, and it does not address the issue. And I can assure you that the people of Rivers State will resist this thing. I don't see them agreeing with this type of jungle justice. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Umar Sani, for your wonderful submission. But then again, quite a number of individuals feel that as a party, your party has not done enough to help Fubara. Do you think there's something you guys should have done better by helping him? Or moving forward, what can the party do to help him at this point, Umar?
Well, you see, this is something that came impromptu. Number one, the party felt that the Supreme Court judgment is enough. We all knew that the Supreme Court judgment was not just, it was not fair. We have even discussed it here, and even the people of River State have come out to say, even PDP River State has come out to say that the Supreme Court judgment was totally biased. But the issue of state of emergency, nobody anticipated that Mr. President will just call a meeting just in a day and then declare state of emergency. Now, I am very confident that our party will not keep quiet. If you look at the things, the whole aim Mr. President has is to destroy our party by every means necessary. One of such means, you can see today, Wike revoked our party, our land, our national headquarters that we are building. He revoked the land. Now, how do you do that? You take PDP and you revoke his own land? You know? If you check now, you will discover that maybe APC has not even paid their own tenement rate. He will not revoke that land, but he will revoke that of PDP, because it's not Wike's agenda. It is an agenda of Mr. President that is being implemented by Wike. Mr. President wants to destroy the PDP, and our governors have been, in every aspect that he comes out, they block. Now the governors have taken over the party. you can see that when Wike saw that he has lost out within the party, he started calling our National Working Committee stupid. You know? So now the issue is the governors have called for an emergency meeting. And because they have called for an emergency meeting, I am very confident that the governors will not agree with this, and they will take decisive steps. But again, which decisive step will you take? You will go to court. When you go to court, can you trust our judiciary? This is the problem, because Mr. President is controlling them. He is the one telling them what to do and what not to do. Can they dispense justice? They cannot. So do not blame the party. Unless we want to live in a society that is full of anarchy and chaos, the judiciary must stand up. They must do the right thing. They must interpret the law properly. And all things that ought to have been done should be done by the judiciary. The judiciary is the hope. Now, unless they want a continuous problem. Now, don't forget, when Eradua came, when the militants started their problem, fuel production nosedived to 400,000 barrels per day. 400,000 barrels per day. Something that we were doing 2.5 million barrels per day. 2.8 million barrels per day. We now nosedive to 400. Now, if you do, what is his own conviction? That our military that is overstretched, that is no more than 200,000 all over the country. Our military is in northeast, they are in northwest. Where will our military have the capacity, the strength, the numbers to be able to tackle IPOB, militancy, banditry, religious intolerance by Boko Haram, and insurgents? The military will be overstretched, and so there will be, if the militants continue along this trajectory, then we are doomed. This is something that is easy. Quite a lot of Nigerians have given solution. For instance, I just read something by Babajide Ojudu. He said the only thing Mr. President needs to do is to call Wiki and call Fubara and give marching orders. Do this thing. You Wiki, remove your hand in River State. You do this, and let's move forward. What Mr. President did in the first one, everybody knows is not just. Nobody will agree to implement that, because you will be subjected to and subordinated to somebody else. Wike will be controlling him as a governor, and he wants his own independence. Did Mr. President allow anybody, when he was governor, to be controlling him? When he came, he wanted to be controlling everybody. Ambode felt he needed not to be controlled. And when Ambode revolted, what did he do? He removed him. So he is used to trying to control. But allow people, other states don't like being controlled. Allow them. If Lagos State people want to be controlled, allow other states that don't want to be controlled not to be controlled. Let them do what is right. Wike cannot be the Lord and Savior and Lord Master of River State. When Odili finished his tenure, he left. He didn't control Amechi. When Amechi finished his tenure, he left. Amechi didn't come to try to control Wike. But why will Wike now come and wants to control Fubara and wants to be in charge of the state?
All right. Thank you very much, Umar Sani. You mentioned the judiciary. I listened to Alhaji Asari Dokubo talking about that the judiciary did the wrong thing. But then again, something came to my mind. I remember not only myself, most everybody on this platform, when the young people we are talking about all eyes on the judiciary, this was during the election. Quite a number of individuals were not happy because they felt that no, it's not going to affect us. And someone like Asari Dokubo was one of those individuals that brought his people, to disturb. You were there, you saw it for yourself. The people who came out to protest against the judiciary. But now it has happened to him. Why am I saying this thing? Some people will say, no, it's okay, it's fine. What happened to Fubara, is good for him. It might be your turn tomorrow, right? My biggest worry in this whole thing is the judiciary, Nigerian judiciary. And I think it's very important everyone on this platform understand what happened and where we find ourselves where we are, because the judiciary decided for some reason, best known to them, they decided to treat a matter that is not in front of them. I think a lot of people don't understand why we find ourselves where we are. If the judiciary did not decide a matter that is not in front of them, we would have had this situation. So now that will now take me back to Henry Shield. Henry, where do we go from here? The judiciary have decided to, rule in a case that is not before them. What's next for Nigerians? What do you think Nigerians should do? Because as it stands right now, the military, based on the pictures we see coming up, the videos and everything, it appears that the military have started moving to the government, and if what we saw was to be believed, right? Moving forward, what is next for Nigeria? Henry Shield. Sorry, am I still audible? Hello?
Yes, Mindset, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I threw a message, a question to him. I'm not sure if he's still on the platform. Okay, let me throw that question to Olatunde. Olatunde, you heard what I said. If you want to respond to that quickly.
Well, that your question, as things stand, I don't think even the judiciary, because we all know how the judiciary comes up with their rulings. So, even if somebody goes to court and says, look, we want to challenge this pronouncement or proclamation by President Tinubu, I'm sure the Supreme Court or the courts will find a technicality to throw it out. That's even if they even hear it. To me, the only people that can resist this will be the good people of River State. To a man, to a woman, to a child. Yes, military formations guys are heading down there, but the people would have to stand up for themselves and say, look, we are not going to accept or take this, because the moment it's accepted there, then who says it would not be accepted in Osun State when they're doing an election or before an election in Osun State, where we know there's already tensions. We saw people people were killed during a couple of weeks ago. And when you look at it, you suspend the executive, you suspend the legislature, you now leave the judiciary. It's like, you know what, it's divide and conquer. So the only people that can go into the forefront when I know there's people will say something like, oh, we shouldn't cry more than the bereaved, but in this case, all of us as Nigerians are bereaved in this matter. It's not a matter of like, this is not, if it can happen to the people of River State today, who says it won't happen in Ondo State tomorrow, or Zamfara State, or Yobe? Because once it's done the first time and it's gotten away with, then he can roll it out. Who says that he comes out tomorrow and says, okay, the 1999 Constitution, I'm binning it, and I want to rule as an absolute president? Are we going to rely on the Senate? Earlier on today, I was watching the news and I saw the NBA go to Akpabio, to the Senate, and Akpabio was telling them, oh, we need to amend this, things that used to be, these are people who are meant to be pressure points or pressure groups standing up to the government, but they are the ones going and not necessarily waiting for handouts, but trying to be on the good side with the government. So to answer your question, I believe it's only the good people of River State that can say, no, we are not accepting this.
All right, thank you very much, Olatunde. Please do help me out. Can you see Prof. Odinkanu on the platform? He says requesting for the mic.
No, I can't see him on the platform. I can't see him at all.
Okay, Omar.
Oh yeah, sorry, I can see him. He's on the listeners section.
I can see him. I can see him now. I told you.
So
you just asked me now, and I wanted to tell you I can see him. And you are making.
All right. So, within yourself, let me make one of you a co-host to see if you can bring him up. Umar, just send the mic as a co-host, please, if you can help bring Prof up. Is Henry still with us? Henry Shade, is he still there?
I am, my brother.
I did ask a question. I did ask a question, and I did ask a question because the reason we find ourselves where we are is because the Supreme Court, in their judgment, decided to rule on a matter that is not in front of them. Where do we go from here?
Back to the basics, back to the table, back to the drawing board. We can't keep progressing in error. It's not. This is a whole country that is being thrown into the bin. A whole country. Look at the law about the tenure of the IG. The kind of things, the kind of strange things that are being done under this government, they should scare any reasonable mind. The kind of very strange actions, very strange legislation. How is this even acceptable? Two people are fighting. You now left your own son that has caused a lot of havoc on the other person. You now went and expelled the other person. That's what the president has done. That's what he has done. It is not, listen, power corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? It is in the place of politicians to want to manipulate the system for their own good. It's normal, it's human nature. What needs to be done is that the people need to say no. This will not stand. That's what needs to happen. The people needs to write. There is absolutely no reason, absolutely no reason for the opposition governors in Nigeria to accept this to stand, for the opposition parties, for Nigerians as citizens of the country. There is no reason for us to accept this shenanigan to stand. It beats every form of decency. It pouring spit on the faces of the people. How is this a solution, for goodness sake? How? How is this a solution? If you look at the whole thing that has happened from the beginning till today, you will see that even before the Supreme Court judgment, you will see that the other party in this fight, not Fubara, the other guy, you will see that he had this kind of confidence that, oh, forget whatever else the other courts are saying, it's going to Supreme Court, don't worry, we will win. I watched some of his statements while he was talking to people in Port Harcourt. There was this assurance, there was this confidence that they were going to get this kind of judgment from the Supreme Court. Now look at what the Supreme Court did, to the extent that Supreme Court justices are now speaking as if they were lawyers to the wicked camp. What is going on with us? Everyone, what is going on with us? Did they use a blanket to cover us? Did they is it threat? What is going on? And where is the place of the opposition? People like Alhaji Umar Sani's party. Where are they in all of this? I can assure you that by tomorrow PTP will release a statement. And that is all. Release some funny, childish, I don't want to say silly statement. How is a press statement the reaction of any serious party, political party, opposition political party? How is a press statement the proper thing to do in response to the desecration of the constitution? We now lack men of courage. So the person there now, since he sees that everybody, see, I was talking about the sectors that have been compromised. Did you see what happened with the Catholic bishops of Nigeria? Just when the US government was going to do something about the killings of Christians in Nigeria, A meeting was immediately summoned. How are we a nation of cowards, of people without any convictions? How are we all sleeping and allowing this man to replicate exactly what he did in Lagos, to replicate such at the national level?
All right.
How?
Henry, please hold your thoughts for a minute. Because of time, let me quickly pass the mic to Chief Odinka. Say Chief, apologies, Prof. Tid Odinkano. Prof, good evening and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mindset, and good evening, colleagues. I hope everyone is fine. And to all the people of faith observing, whether it is Lent or Ramadan, I hope you can share the food with us, those of us who are skinny and hungry.
All right, thank you very much, Prof.
All right, thank you very much, Prof.
State of emergency.
The state of emergency in Rivers State.
What do you make of the whole thing?
What do you make of the whole thing? How going on? No, I've listened. I actually just did want to listen. Generally speaking, nothing about this is surprising. I heard Omar say nobody expected this. I would have been surprised if this didn't happen. I certainly did expect it, and I actually called some friends last week to tell them, look, I think we're focusing on the wrong thing. As much as I admire what Natasha is doing, the fact that it had become the biggest news out of Nigeria was taking away from this, and you could see in the horizon, very, very immediate term, that we were headed to where exactly we are right now. And I was suggesting to them that there needs to be some recalibration to call attention to the fact that with where we are, the budget will not be financed, and things are going to get a lot harder across the board for the country. But secondly, there is this. I hear Henry's passion and almost anger at what, for want of a better expression, I'll call surrender, despondency, popular despondency amongst Nigerians. I actually don't quite think that is true about, young Nigerians, different Nigerians are doing what they can, but they've been failed by the political opposition. Now, let's go back to the Constitution and what it says. Section 305, subsection 6 requires, if you read 305(2) and 6, it's very clear. The president can declare an emergency howsoever he wants. However, he's got to transmit the proclamation to the joint chambers. And the joint chambers have 48 hours if the National Assembly is in session, or 10 days if the National Assembly is not in session, to affirm by two-thirds majority of each chamber establishment, they affirm and confirm the emergency. If they don't, the emergency lapses. APC does not have two-thirds in either chamber. PDP, Henry, while you were talking, PDP, Dele Debo Ologagba issued the statement of the PDP, and he could not find it in himself to say the party has instructed all its members in the National Assembly to vote against a joint resolution on the emergency. That is the problem. Stop blaming the people. Let us start with where the problem is. The president, Tinubu, as powerful as you want him to be, cannot sustain this emergency if PDP holds the line. PDP is a failure. And Umar, that your party is an absolute failure. This is the time when the party needs to stand up for Nigerians or for itself. Atiku has issued a statement. None of them can say we are asking our legislators to vote against this. That is the first step. Let's stop blaming the people. The people will die and the politicians will take office on top of their bones and their bodies and their blood. Right? And it is the politicians of both parties. Today, it is no longer PDP. since today the party has become IDP, internally displaced party, because it no longer has a headquarters. When Wike was revoking plots for other people, PDP as an opposition kept quiet. The easiest thing to do is to oppose APC. It does not require skill. But the party system has bailed out on the country, and it's easy to say, oh, Tinubu has destroyed the party. I'm sorry, a party that is a party cannot be destroyed by Tinubu or anybody. Obasanjo tried to destroy ACN and AC. It didn't work. So the PDP itself has been complicit in its own liquidation. And I do think that now the first thing is this: if we have you've got to master two-thirds. To master two-thirds in the next 48 hours, because the National Assembly is in session, you have got to get a significant number of legislators from the Niger Delta. You've got to get a significant number of legislators from the PDP. The Labour Party legislators have got to be on board. And so you ask yourself, what kind of democracy is that? And we cannot sit down here and wring our hands, and I hear people say, you can't cry more than the bereaved. But if the majority of legislators from the Niger Delta are going to be voting against this, to support this, who will vote for it? I lawyered the emergency following Dogo Nahawa in 2010. And I know what I went through with General Azazi, the late General Azazi, in his office as National Security Advisor, to say, no, you cannot do what President Obasanjo did. It's unlawful. It's unconstitutional. You cannot sack the governor, the way he did. The Supreme Court had made that clear. Secondly, there is a process. Now, let's even assume. And secondly, you can designate a part of the state. Now, you're declaring state of emergency in all of Rivers State. What is the casus belli? What evidence is there? Is anything the problem in Port Harcourt? Is anything the problem in Okrikaland? Where exactly is the problem? You can therefore make a state of emergency surgical. That's assuming that there is reason. But there is a third procedural issue, and which is what? Even when President Obasanjo declared an emergency over all of Plateau State and removed Governor Dariye, he did something. He first asked to see him and to listen to his side of the story. President Tinubu has declared an emergency today without even the minimal courtesy of hearing from Sim Fubara and asking him what exactly is the situation on the ground. So when people say that this is predetermined, prejudicial, and working from answer to question, it's very clear. It is politically motivated emergency. That is an abuse of the Constitution. This is, the one thing a president must never do is to politicize security and insecurity. And that is what, unfortunately, regrettably, in my view, and I suspect in the view of most well-meaning Nigerians, President Tinubu has done. The broadcast is a disgrace. And what he has done also is basically to tell Wike, you are the deputy president. That's really, really awful. But that's my main point is, if the opposition parties worked, there will be no emergency. And there is still room to walk back on that. But will they? And if the legislators from the Niger Delta, a majority of them, because Godswill Akpabio is from the Niger Delta after all, if they worked together, will this emergency hold? I don't think so. But we still have 48 hours to hear. You've seen the information that the president consulted with them before proceeding with this, and they assured him that there is unanimous consent by the National Assembly behind the emergency. We are going to find out within 48 hours whether that is true. I yield.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof.
You said 48 hours.
You said 48 hours.
But from the...
If the National Assembly is in session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So within that 48 hours,
so within that 48 hours, does that mean
the governor can still be governor till the next 48 hours?
No, it is confirmation.
Sorry, Henry.
Your voice.
Yes, it's because
Prof's mic is on.
It's better now, isn't it? Hello? Okay.
Just go ahead.
Okay, so within the 48 hours that Prof is saying, a lot of people might get confused with this whole thing, right? The governor, is he still going to be there within the 48 hours that the National Assembly will decide whether they will vote for it or against it, Prof?
An emergency takes effect once the instrument is signed. Yes? But it lapses if within 48 hours there is no confirmation of that emergency by joint resolution of 2/3 of establishment of both chambers.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Umar, you raise your hand. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. Prof, this is for you. Now, the issue is not about whether we will have 48 within 48 hours we will know whether the proclamation will work or it will not work. What we want to know, which is very important, is whether the president, going by our constitution, has the power to suspend a governor. Thank you.
I don't think he does. The law seems to me to be quite clear. That's pretty much settled. The president does not have the powers to suspend a governor, as part of an emergency. The problem is we've got a prostituted judiciary, and I've sent out a post this evening on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Under the tenure as Chief Justice of Lawal Uwais, Mohammed Lawal Uwais, the Supreme Court saved Nigeria from the brink on a succession of moments, not one, not two, not three. Under the tenure of the present Chief Justice, the Supreme Court was able to do that then because it had both independence and therefore authority. For the most part, as a matter of fact, in 2005, I believe the Supreme Court was voted Man of the Year by Nigerians. Now, here we are, and the Supreme Court is racing to send Nigeria to perdition because it has sold its authority, it lacks independence, it is totally captured. Without the Supreme Court's intervention, which, by the way, my own private sources had told me would last year, I was told privately this was where this case was going to end. In November, while the case was still pending at the Court of Appeal. So, when we are in this kind of situation, where crooked decisions by the highest court in the country, manifestly crooked decisions by the highest court in the country, serve the role of pouring petrol on political fire, you know you're in trouble. And that is the time when your opposition political parties need to stand up to be heard. And at this moment, they can't. So even if you were to sue, whether at the High Court or the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, original jurisdiction or howsoever you do it, of course, there can be no original jurisdiction now because Ibokete Abbas is not going to be suing his benefactor. You're still going to be ending up in a situation where the judiciary is not much use. And therefore, we are saddled here with politics, and the political parties are not showing up. That is why saddling Nigerians with this problem is not something I think anyone can do seriously. Nigerians cannot do anything without their political representatives showing up. And at the moment, none. Very few are.
Okay, so you spoke about these opposition parties. If you're in the opposition party issue, what do you think they should be doing at this point? Because they have put out a press statement. What else do you want them to do?
My brother, if I were to take, parliamentary democracy, if you read Esken Mayer, there is something called a three-line whip. And a three-line whip basically is a mandatory instruction to all members of a political party in parliament. You have got to vote only one way. The only thing I wanted to see in a statement by any of the parties, I'd like to see in a statement by any of the parties right now, is not to speak in adjectives and tell me about 5, 6, 7 syllables of any word. That is nonsensical. It's a waste of the assets of a political party. The only thing I would have loved to see in a statement by Debo Ologunagba right now is the PDP, having received this information and considered it, has instructed every member of the PDP in the National Assembly, honorable member and distinguished senator, to vote against the joint resolution under a three-line whip. That will be a political party. What they are doing is they have become analysts. That a political party is not an analyst. A political party has got to have a mission. At this time, the PDP does not have a mission, and there is no other political opposition party that has a mission. That's the first thing a political party has to do in this situation. We will vote against this because we do not believe it is in the national interest. No? Why is that so difficult?
Okay, thank you very much. And let me help you. Thank you very much for responding to that question. Omar, please, if you can see others who are requesting for the mic, if you're able to bring them up. I've been told that by staying near behind Effiong is requesting for the mic, and the others who are requesting for the mic, please, and Captain and the rest of them, bring them up. So I'll quickly go back to, sorry, Dr. Odo, you have the mic, please. State of emergency in Rivers State. Okay, let me quickly pass the mic to Barrister Effiong.
I'm here, my side. Sorry. My side? Am I audible?
Okay.
Hello?
Okay, quickly go ahead, because I've passed the mic to Barrister Effiong already. So, but you can go ahead.
No, I'm here, my side. Look, this is really a sad day for democracy. Let me say a very good evening to everyone first.
All right. It appears we've lost Dr. Odo. Quickly, let me pass the mic to Barrister Effiong. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. State of emergency in Rivers State.
Good evening, Mindset. I think for me it's just a further reaffirmation that our problematic democratic experiment has basically been eroded in a more egregious manner by this president. In an earlier space this evening, I drew the attention of Nigerians. And for those who are listening to me, you can just simply check my most recent post or tweet, as it were. There's a link to an article I published in 2014 titled State of Emergency Before You Remove Those Governors. That was the article I published when emergency was declared in 3 states in 2014 by then President Jonathan, and the likes of Akpabio were calling for the removal of the governors of those states. And the call became intensified because other people joined to support it. And there were insinuations that Jonathan was planning to have the governors removed. So I was forced to write that article. Jonathan was the president Jonathan, as you are aware, is from the Niger Delta where I come from. But the position I took then is still the position I took today. My view has not changed. The emergency powers under Section 305 is intended to address situations of monumental significance. Number one, if you look at sub 3, where the federation is, where the federation is at war, if Nigeria is at war, you will expect a state of emergency to be declared. If there's a natural disaster of a proportion that cannot be managed under a normal law enforcement mechanisms, they may be need to declare a state of emergency. If there is a appearance or likelihood or an impending breakdown, if there's a breakdown of law and order in the federation or any state thereof, or any part of the federation, a state of emergency can also be declared. And in fact, the circumstances are well articulated. And there's even a requirement that a governor may even request the president to declare a state of emergency in a state with the concurrence of 2/3 of the votes of the lawmakers of that state. Now, what has happened in Rivers State? In the first place, Tinubu purporting to declare a state of emergency in response to what is clearly a political friction between a governor and a House of Assembly is itself very laughable, because to begin with, is this now exercising appellate jurisdiction over the decision of the Supreme Court, which some of us have declined to comment on for reasons that I don't want to start talking about here. But the important thing is that our court of last resort has made a pronouncement. Governor Fubara has forwarded a budget to Parliament. He wrote the first one. They said, "Oh, you did not give notice." He sent the second notification, purporting to comply with the judgment of the Supreme Court. Okay, he has given recognition to the Amawele-led lawmakers. So is Tinubu now appeal? Is he now seeking to further give consequential? Is he giving consequential effect to the judgment of the Supreme Court? Because if that is the intent of this emergency, then the Attorney General of the Federation should resign. Because by virtue of Section 287 of the Constitution, on the enforcement of decisions of the Supreme Court, of course, it has to be enforced by every authority or person. But if they are saying that the government of Rivers State, led by Fubara, is in contempt of the judgment of the Supreme Court, there are legal channels for enforcing the judgment of courts. In fact, that judgment has already been enforced by merely withholding the allocation of the state. That is punitive enough. So I'm just speaking to the reason, the purported reason the president has adduced. Now, furthermore, if you look at Section 180 of the Constitution, it is explicit on tenure of office of a governor and when a governor may cease to hold office. There are 4 constitutionally permissible circumstances under which a governor may cease to hold office. The language is cease to hold office. That is death, permanent incapacitation, resignation, or impeachment. Those are the 4 scenarios under which an elected head, right, of a federating unit. We must bear in mind that Rivers State is a federating unit. We are not dealing with a component part of the federal government. We are not dealing with an agency of the federal government here. Under Section 2 of our Constitution, Nigeria shall be a federation consisting of states and the Federal Capital Territory. So Rivers State is a federating unit. Okay? So if the president, the head of the federal government, is saying that who was purportedly elected, or who was, let me not say purported, who was elected as held by a Supreme Court, is now purporting to now suspend the head of another federating unit, whose election has also been affirmed by a Supreme Court, whose tenure is defined to be 4 years from the day he subscribed to the oath of office and oath of allegiance, then it shows that our constitution is useless. It doesn't even make sense. Now, none of those 4 circumstances has arisen. Assuming the House of Assembly is incapable of functioning, there's a constitutional solution to that. I think it's section 11 that permits the National Assembly to temporarily assume and exercise the legislative functions of the House of Assembly where the House of Assembly is incapable of functioning as a parliamentary body. National Assembly actually had that power. So if Akpabio is so concerned that Rivers State House of Assembly is unable to function, why did the National Assembly not pass the resolution to allow them temporarily make laws for Rivers State? Okay? So all I'm saying is that the powers of the president to declare a state of emergency and the incidence of that emergency, it is only to the extent that it is to give you extraordinary powers to take measures to address a crisis. I don't know if you are with
Yes,
me,
I'm
mindset.
listening.
It is to give you power to address a mindset, to address a situation. Take for example, if it is based on, if it's saying that there's breakdown of law and order, how do you resolve breakdown of law and order? How you resolve breakdown of law and order is that you now deploy the military if the situation is so bad, if the police is overwhelmed, for example, right? You can rely on section 305, rely on section 207, rely on section 5, and deploy the armed forces to restore law and order. So law and order is not the issue here. Because in Rivers State today, markets are open, schools are functioning, churches are open, mosques are functioning. Okay? Even the House of Assembly is sitting. The House is sitting. The governor is in office. All institutions are working. The civil service is running. There is no regulation of movement. People are going about their businesses in Rivers State. So you cannot premise on the state of emergency on breakdown of law and order. And because we have the principle of exclusio unius exclusio alterius, that the express mention of one thing is exclusion of others. The Constitution has clearly enumerated circumstances under which an emergency may be declared. Nigerians must now challenge Tinubu to tell us which of them is applicable in Rivers State. It's applicable here. Let me conclude. People say Obasanjo did it. Well, why are you surprised? Obasanjo was a general in the army. He was a former military dictator. So when he did it, it was not surprising. And has anyone queried for a second, how come that the Ibo Ete, the so-called sole administrator, is somebody who came from the Navy? Why is he someone with a military background mindset? Do you know why it is a military person? Because the very idea of substituting a democratically elected governor of a state with an unknown, an unelected entity or personality called sole administrator is a military creation. It's a military aberration. That is why the person that was appointed is someone from the military. And it has been so since Obasanjo years. So this is Tinubu telling us that that the federal government has declared coup, has staged a coup against the government of Rivers State. That is what has happened. So I feel sad. This matter had gone to the Supreme Court when Obasanjo declared emergency in Plateau State. If you read that article, unfortunately at that time, quite sadly, the Supreme Court declined to pronounce on the substantive question. Why? Because at the time the matter got to the Supreme Court, the emergency, had elapsed. The Supreme Court said it had become academic. I'm hoping that Fubara will go to the Supreme Court or will approach the court to have a determination on this matter. And sorry, I took some time. Finally, there is even the duplicity part of this. Okay, the intellectual duplicity, the political duplicity. Assuming that this is meant to resolve a political crisis, why is Wike still a minister? Why is Wike having meeting right now with Akpabio? Why is Wike the architect of the crisis not being removed? The president is not an unbiased umpire. The president is not acting as the father of the nation. The president is acting as a partisan and an interested party. Here is the man who imposed unconditional and impossible conditions on Fubara. How can you tell a governor that you must return commissioners people who were commissioners, openly express hostility to you, resign from your government to support your adversary? You are a president, you say go and return them. That was unconstitutional. So Tinubu is also the part of the architect of the crisis in Rivers State. And those who are waiting for free and fair election in 2019, Tinubu has sent his verdict to you already.
You mean 2027, right?
2027.
Okay, thank you very much, Barrister Effiong. I have questions for you. I know one of them you probably might not want to respond to. The first thing that you said about that the governor should approach the Supreme Court, and a lot of people like myself will say, Which Supreme Court? It's the Supreme Court that landed us where we are at the moment, at this point, right? Now, the Supreme Court ruled on a case. I know you probably don't want to get involved in this, but this is me speaking. I'm not putting words in your mouth, right? The Supreme Court ruled on a case that was not in front of them. So when you advise someone like the governor of Rivers State to go and approach the same Supreme Court, people will be like, what are you talking about? It's these guys that did this thing. So apart from the Supreme Court, what else do you think that Governor Fubara should do? That question is for you, Barrister Effiong.
Well, in the final analysis, right, you cannot do without the Supreme Court. Okay, you cannot do without the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court of Nigeria is still the highest court of the land. Like Prof said, I'm not certain. I don't think that even the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court can be invoked in this case, because we have what we call the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. If you look at section 231 of the Constitution, those are disputes between the federation and the state, essentially. But we have what is called the Supreme Court Additional Jurisdiction Act that expanded the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Original jurisdiction is where the Supreme Court sits as a court of first instance. So the matter doesn't have to go to the Federal High Court or State High Court or FCC High Court or National Industrial Court and then further appeal to the Court of Appeal and to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court can actually exercise the original jurisdiction by hearing a matter as a first instance originally without having to go through the appellate process. Now, the dispute between a governor of a state, because Fubara is still the governor, by the way, he's still the governor, so I'm not sure that a governor can do that under the original jurisdiction. Should he go to the Federal High Court? I would recommend, because ordinarily, this is a dispute between Rivers State and the federal government. But guess what? Who is going to institute the action? The Attorney General of the Rivers State. Who is the Attorney General? Supreme Court has said they recognize the Amawele faction, that they never defected. Well, the affidavit of defection is there, their video is there, but the Supreme Court has given a judgment. However, who will now file the suit? Because the action has to be brought in the name of the Attorney General of Rivers State on behalf of the state. Now, who is the Attorney General of the Rivers State? The President Commissioner and Attorney General was confirmed, if I'm not mistaken, of course it was confirmed by the Uche Jumbo faction. I think the man who is now the Chief of Staff. And the Supreme Court, by their judgment, are essentially saying decisions that may have been taken by that four-member house, they don't recognize it. So if they even made the mistake of filing an action under the original jurisdiction, all that Tinubu AGF, Lateef Fagbemi would do is to just file an objection and say that this action is brought in the name of the Attorney General of the state, one for whose appointment is unconstitutional. So that is not advisable. I would recommend that it should go to the Federal High Court. When you file it, an affidavit of urgency, and let us see whether the matter can be heard, and then file a motion for what we call constitutional reference. That is what I recommend. This is free legal advice. Fubara should immediately assemble a team of lawyers tomorrow, prepare an originating summons. You don't need writ of summons. Originating summons with issues for determination at the Federal High Court tomorrow. They can start preparing it this night. Bring an application for a constitutional reference. So constitutional reference is that you file a matter at the Federal High Court when it raises serious constitutional questions. The Federal High Court can defer determination of those questions to the Court of Appeal. When you get to the Court of Appeal, you bring a further application for reference to the Supreme Court. So what you could have done through original jurisdiction, you can still do it through a constitutional reference, but except that it will now be a bit longer. I believe that is the best bet, because if this is not challenged, 2027, we may just be wasting our time. If a president of a country can just wake up and say, I am removing a governor, he can manufacture reasons to remove other governors. He can manufacture other reasons. This is not going to be the end of it. Like Gani Fagbemi said, those who sow the seeds of dictatorship will be consumed by dictatorship. A seed of dictatorship has been sown, and you cannot tell where this is going, what this will germinate to. So Fubara must challenge this, because he has been very cowardly. Part of the problem is that Fubara has been very cowardly. He must challenge this in court. The Akpabio that I know from my state, who was my former governor, will do everything to have this approved in the Senate. I'm telling you, I know Akpabio. I can write a book about him. I know who this man is.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister Effiong. Prof, you raise your hand. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks a lot, Mindset. I try, I do my best not to be a lawyer in these things. But I am an amateur historian, and I think sometimes history tells us something. We are talking about emergencies, and the emergency in the Western region in '62 began in there is Fire on the Mountain incident, the sitting of the Parliament of the old Western region. And after Bola Ige had gone around to collect the signatures showing that, or tending to show that Ladoke Akintola, who was then the premier, did not have, had lost majority support in the assembly. And on the back of, in the midst of that crisis, the Ooni of Ife, who was then the governor of the region, Adeshoja Aderemi, invited Alhaji Adegbenro to take over as the premier because it appeared he had a majority. Now, at that time, I'll tell you why I'm telling this story. At that time, the Chief Justice, because then they were called Chief Justice of the region. Now they're called Chief Judges of States. But at that time, the Chief Justice of the Western region was a man called Ohai Kwashi Aidum. Ohai Kwashi Aidum was Ghanaian. He had been exiled pretty much to Nigeria because of a political dispute with President Nkrumah in 1959. And so he became the Chief Justice of the Western region. And his position was pretty much dependent on a good relationship with the premier. Now, Akintola sued before the High Court of the Western region, fully expecting that his client and beneficiary, who was the chief judge of the state, of the region, would give him a favorable judgment. Instead of doing that, Ohai Kwashi Aidum transmitted a reference to the then Federal Supreme Court. And that triggered, now what that meant was that tactically, if Kwashi Aidum had given Akintola a judgment, Akintola would have had political leverage from that judgment. And he could have acted on it irrespective of what happened on appeal. And it would also have meant that by the time he got to the Federal Supreme Court, he would have framed the issue. Instead, Kwashi Aidum excused himself from the dispute and sent it up by way of a reference to the Federal Supreme Court, where ultimately a judgment came down, and then it went to the Privy Council in London, where Akintola lost. But then the government of Tafawa Balewa changed the constitution in order to nullify that decision. This was in 1963. So that was how Nigeria became a republic. But the reason I tell this story is to respond to this question about a reference, Fubara filing and then getting a reference to the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. A captured judiciary will not give you a reference. Now, by the way, to finish that story, after Kwashi Aidum did that, Akintola got angry with him and never saw him again. Okay? As a result, Kwashi Aidum's contract eventually had to be negotiated out and bought out, and he left the Western region shortly after the Privy Council judgment and ended up in East Africa, where he became a judge, first in Kenya and then in the East African Court of Justice. The reason I tell this story is a captured judiciary will not do the thing my brother is suggesting. And we have a totally captured judiciary, and it will not be in their interest, where there are suggestions that judicial decisions are being taken outside the courts. Judges are taking instructions from clients who are outside the court system. how do you expect those clients to be telling the judges or send a reference to the Supreme Court or Court of Appeal? It's not going to work. And I think we have to be serious and recognize, I do recognize that lawyers do have a problem with admitting to the depth of the rot in the judicial system. But it is so devastating that that rot is no longer a legal problem. It has become a political problem. And that takes me back to the role of the political parties. The fact that the political parties have wimped out and the political leaders are no longer prepared to sacrifice anything is our problem. What we have in Rivers State is not a legal problem. It's not for lawyers. It is a political problem. So let's stop trying to outsource it to the courts, because that is why we have ended up in a situation where the courts have been completely taken over by political disputes. Rivers is not a legal problem. It will not be solved by 1 million Supreme Court judgments or references. It is a political problem. Full stop. I yield.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. You said it's a political problem. It cannot be solved by the Supreme Court. How do we solve the problem? How do we attempt for the political parties to solve the problem?
Do they want to? There is no pressure. Look, the democracy is about one thing: contestability. You've got to create contestability. Tinubu is getting away with what he's doing because there is no contestability. Now, imagine if you had a situation in which his proclamation of emergency got voted down by the National Assembly. There'll be contestability. At the moment, there isn't any such thing. And the remedy here is not in the Supreme Court. We have a ready remedy in section 3056 of the Constitution, which is what? Vote the damn thing down. Period. The only people who can do that are the opposition lawmakers in the National Assembly. Bring $1 billion to them. If they reject it and stick together, this does not work. How difficult is that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Prof, can you please mute your mic, please? Thank you. Quickly, let me pass the mic to Dr. Odo. Dr. Odo, please, you have the mic.
Yes, thank you, Mindset. I hope I'm audible now. Let me say good evening to everyone again. I think all the speakers, especially Prof and
Okay, I think, Dr. Odo, you need to sort out whatever the problem is with your network, because for every time you want to speak, you're always having this problem. Barrister Effiong, you raise your hand before I go to Mr. Maswell. Barrister Effiong, please go ahead, sir.
Yes. I like the approach my Oga and my boss, Professor Odinkalu, has taken. My reservation, however, is that quite unfortunately, we don't have parliamentarians or lawmakers that are ideological or that have any principle or direction politically. And I don't have the maths. Maybe those who have the numbers can even tell us, how many members the APC has in the Senate and how many they have in the House of Reps. Because given the gall of recent defections, we may even need to start by asking, does the APC have the two-thirds in both chambers? That is one. The suggestion that they will vote along partisan lines and that opposition members or lawmakers will be unanimous, I very much doubt that. We have a situation where I started by, when I spoke earlier, I said, I can't speak for the House of Reps, but I can tell you that the Senate will approve this. Go and write it down. The Akpabio, who was my governor for 8 years, has zero tolerance for opposition. Tinubu is more tolerant of dissent than Akpabio. I'm telling you. Go and check what the House of Assembly was. In fact, go and check what happened in Akwa Ibom under Akpabio. I've written about these things. So he will bring out the number. There are two ways of voting in the Senate, either by voice vote or by head count. And usually when there is dispute as to voice vote, okay, the standing rules of each of the chambers says the presiding officer shall cause the members to sit and for the vote to be taken individually. However, we have seen situations where voice vote, majority will say nay, the presiding officer will vote, will rule in the opposite. So I don't have confidence that a PDP that is almost useless, a PDP whose so-called national chairman went and put something in the court record, in the process of the court, that the Supreme Court now relied on, basically saying that he's aware that the lawmakers did not defect. He's not aware of their defection. I'm not aware that that PDP that is so indisciplined, that some of their governors are licking Tinubu's ass, pardon my language, that those parliamentarians will be able to take a stand openly to oppose this. If we are depending on so-called opposition lawmakers, including those in the Labour Party, if we are counting on them to reject this, it may not work. My suggestion, other than the legal, is that the battle lies with the Nigerian people and the people of Rivers State. If the pressure does not come from Nigerians, just go and write it down. This so-called proclamation will be approved one way or the other. So let the Supreme Court have that burden, or that burden of conscience, okay, to pronounce on whether a president in a federal system of government can purport to suspend the head of a federating unit. Let them say that Tinubu can do it under any guise, and let that become the law of our country. You know, Supreme Court judges are subject to two judgments: the judgment of God, the judgment of history, which you can also call the judgment of the people. So let them make that pronouncement. But politically at the National Assembly, I don't see a way out of this. I don't see a way. These are discredited people. Money may be moving as we are talking to have this thing approved. This thing is not a coincidence. They have sat down, they have done the maths, they have calculated, they have consulted, they have done a. Look at Natasha. Natasha was suspended for 6 months. No single member of the Senate, 109, except for maybe one or two that have passed on, no one could rise up and speak strongly. Not even the minority leader, not even the so-called opposition senators. And you expect them to come and carry Fubara's cross when many of them are looking for favors and contracts from Wike and the federal government. These are not the people we are going to rely on. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister Effiong, for your wonderful submission. You made me laugh when you said the Supreme Court might have conscience, and I thought to myself, Supreme Court and conscience in one sentence. I don't think these people have conscience, but that's a story for another day. I know you don't want to dive into that, but quickly, let me pass the mic to Comrade. Comrade, you have the mic, sir. Comrade Mo.
Okay, thank you very much, Mindset. Good day, everyone.
Comrade, we are not able to hear you. Your mic is muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Please go ahead, sir. Good evening.
Okay, good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I think there's nothing about this topic that Professor Dinkalu and Henry and Effiong and Mr. Omar have not said. And I agree to almost everything they've said. But first and foremost, if you look at it, democracy is a ship held steady by laws. But when the captain of this ship engages in bending the rule, it drifts towards anarchy or a storm in some nature. What they did might be constitutional. It's left for the lawyers to interpret for us. But is it democratic? An entire executive and an assembly suspended without even the two-thirds. And then you begin to ask yourself, I remember vividly when Jonathan faced this issue in Maiduguri. It was then Aminu Bello Masari, who was the speaker, I think. Oh, no, not Masari, so I think it's Tambua also, that advised him that you can declare state of emergencies in this state, but the governors must stand. And even Kashim Shettima, who is the present vice president, was a governor then. So it just tells you how bad we've gone as a system, and how the democratic administration is actually bleeding day by day. I don't have a lot to say today because I think they've overflogged this issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Comrade, for your wonderful submission. I'll quickly pass the mic to Mr. Maxwell. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mindset. Good evening, and thank you for having me. Good evening to everybody here. I would like to comment as brief as possible on the issues surrounding the state of emergency. You see Section 180, which provides for instances where a governor can cease to hold office as the governor of a state. And then when you look further at Section 188, which provides for the procedure for removal, you would see that there is a deliberate attempt to call this removal of Sim Fubara and the entire House of Assembly a suspension. It is akin to what we saw with Walter Onogen, the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, which happened during the time of Muhammadu Buhari under the same APC leadership, where an arm of government was seen suspending another arm of government. As I've always said, these are arms that there is none superior to the other. They are unparalleled, only working for the smooth running of government. But we saw it with that, suspending the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So now we also see here where an elected official is suspending another elected official without the permission. There is a reason why the Constitution, in talking about the removal of the governor of a state under Section 188, has to do with the legislative house, because the State House of Assembly is a representative of the people of Rivers State or the people of the state. And by these representatives, they decide what the people actually want. But what we have seen here is they call it a suspension for whatever months that they want to call it. But this is totally in, I don't know, in disagreement with the Constitution. Now, two things have happened here, which I would like people to really pay attention to. There is a case of state of emergency declaration and the case of the removal. These are two distinct things and should not be joined as one. People try to legitimize the removal of the state governor and the legislative house with the provisions of the state of emergency, which is not proper. How is it not proper? The entirety of Section 305 of the Constitution only envisages the pronouncement of a state of emergency by the president. But I would like to throw emphasis on the provisions of Section 305, subsection 3, and subsection 4. Subsection 4 provides that there is a possibility for the governor of a state to declare the state of emergency, and he must have done that supported by 2/3 majority of the House of Assembly after a request. That's they make a request to the president, who now carries on this proclamation. Then my question becomes, if the Constitution envisages the possibility of a state of emergency by the state governor or through his request, does the state of emergency now play into the removal of the governor of the state? Let me put it in other words. So if it is possible for the governor of a state to declare state of emergency according to Section 305 sub 4, does that remove him from being the governor of that state? Or the House of Assembly that was supposed to vote 2/3 majority in support with the position of the state governor, does that remove them entirely? So state of emergency is actually different from the removal of these two arms of government, however, it being that it is at the state level. So it is totally illegal going by these provisions. And when the Constitution limits the consultation of the state governor, because the provision went ahead to state that where these issues, where the governor fails to declare the state of emergency, that is on the issues of subsection 3, paragraph C, D, and E. And these 3 paragraphs points towards one thing, the security of the state within its territory, as it has to do with public order, actual breakdown of public order, or the public safety to restore peace and security. So it has nothing to do with the executive running of a state or the legislative running of a state. is simply on the basis of security. That is to say, at the declaration of a state of emergency, all powers within the security apparatus now listens to the federal, that is, the president, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, with the sole purpose of restoring peace and order in that state. So what we see here is a total aberration. And I tell people that the fact that something has been done before does not speak about its legality. The fact that Obasanjo had his way to do this, or persons before Tinubu has done this, does not speak about the legality of the action in itself. So Tinubu is not interested in solving crises that have stemmed up from individual, how do I put it? Crises that have stemmed up from individual interests of both Sim Fubara and Wike, because it all stemmed up from the agreement, personal agreement between a former governor of the state who doesn't have any executive power anymore in that state and is sitting president. But guess what? The entirety of the state now has to suffer it by declaring state of emergency. Has there been an actual breakdown of peace in Rivers State? Has there been an actual breakdown of public safety in Rivers State? Everything continues to run smoothly, like Barrister Inubi has earlier said. So we should try to separate this entirely. He may have the right to go ahead and declare state of emergency, but there are limits to these actions. And as much as the executive in this might continues to violate the provisions of the constitution to this extent, you continue to see anarchy. So there is a deliberate handing over of executive power to the military. That is what we are seeing here. He's called an administrator of the state, suspending the executive, suspending the legislature, and then keeping the judiciary, which is actually what is done during military coup in Nigeria. Go back and see it, the declarations of military coup in Nigeria. So the only place that ceases, that is still functioning, is the judiciary. And you ask yourself, I must give kudos to Professor Chidi for all the work he has been doing with the judiciary. You know who controls this same judiciary in that same state, even at the federal level. So these are the issues. And as long as the people continue to keep quiet, River State people must act upon this. As much as we may not be able to solve it from the political actors, from the executive into the judiciary, even to the Supreme Court, I think that there is a duty on every person, every resident of River State and Nigerians generally to kick against this. And we can know what we can do from there going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maxwell, for your wonderful submission. I will quickly pass the mic to Ariwa. Ariwa, good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, my side, and good evening to everyone on the platform. My contribution, my side, is going to be very brief because I've had so many superior arguments, or let me say, a very critical conversation regarding the situation. And I believe everybody who has been following actually knows that what just happened today is illegal. But the major problem I have, my side, is in a country of over 200 million people. What are we supposed to do? Are we just going to sit and watch while a few people take over this nation, infringe on our fundamental rights, and just get away with it? Is it possible that we are just going to sit behind and look at what is happening in this country and nobody is saying anything? Does this look like a government that will legitimately hand over power in 2027? It's not looking like it. And I think with the most important thing, the most important awakening today for me is that they are fully out and they are ready for whatever that is going to come in 2027. The most important question I have for anybody in this platform now, help me out, I will really appreciate it, is when all these channels have failed, what are we supposed to do? What is Sim Fubara supposed to do? Should he go ahead and obey this illegal order? Or should he resume to office tomorrow and let the worst happen? Or are we just going to all sit behind and look at these people? Because I believe that River State people, Sim Fubara and the River State indigenes are very much, they are key to whatever happens next. Because this is a situation that is actually happening in River State, even though on a larger scale, it affects us all as a nation, because it's clear nobody is safe. And any state, they can just concoct situations and declare state of emergency and fix whoever they want there. But the issue mindset is, where do we go from here? What are we supposed to do as people? What is supposed to happen tomorrow? Because it is important we know that anything that guides law and order regarding this particular administration is totally off the book. So are we going to sit and watch this thing keep unfolding while we fold our hands? Or where exactly do we go from here? Because I don't know, honestly, to be honest with you, I don't even know. But the most important aspect is, what is the fate of Rivers people, and where is a democratically elected governor supposed to go to tomorrow? Is he supposed to sit down at home and obey this order? Or is he going to his office tomorrow and let the worst happen? Thank you very much, Master. I yield for now.
Thank you very much, Adiwell, for your wonderful submission. I wish I have the answer to that question. What do we do next? I don't know. That's my response to it. I don't know. If I know, I will tell you. I think this takes me back to when the issue of all eyes on judiciary happened. A lot of young people, spend their hard-earned money, and they were warning each and every one of us. There is a problem within the Nigerian judiciary. These people went out of their way, spent money, they did the T-shirt, they did everything, they did the billboard, telling Nigerians, you guys have to wake up. It's time to wake up. Listen, guys, there is a problem with the Nigerian judiciary. A lot of people didn't buy it. A lot of people thought, no, because, you guys did not win the election. That's why you're doing it. But this is where we are right now. And I must say this, I'm not here to praise anybody, because you asked, what can we do? I remember we hosted a space after the pronunciation of the election. Mr. Maxwell, who spoke before yourself, and Omar Sani were the only persons on this platform that went to the Supreme Court that day. They went to protest about it. You understand? So when people say, what can we do? I don't know what else we can do. Prof. Odinkano have written about this whole thing, try to, let Nigerians know there is a problem within our judicial system. There is a problem. The thing that landed us where we find ourselves this evening, while we're housing this, is because the Supreme Court decided to rule on a matter that was not in front of them. That is what happened. So I wish, I can throw the question to every other person on the speaker section. Where do we go from here? Prof, sorry, let me quickly pass the mic back to Olatunde. Olatunde, where do we go from here? How do I ask a question?
Hi, Mindset. You've answered it when they said, when it's a case of like, where do we go from here? If we can see that the law is meant to be about precedents, and if precedents are not being followed, I said it when in my opening remarks earlier on, I've got no faith that any arm of the Nigerian judiciary currently would interpret the law as it's meant to be, based on our constitution. They will try and find ways to make sure that it's done to support the president's wrong actions. Even if they say, okay, and I heard Prof, and it was funny, I mentioned the 3-line whips that is used in the British Parliament and everything. I'm not sure that the PDP members would even listen to that. I was saying earlier on, they said another 2 members have defected to APC. And the ones that are remaining, will they even stand up? Do they have the spine or the backbone to do that? I don't think so. So it goes back to what I said earlier on, that I believe that the good people of River State, to a man, to a child, should make their voices heard and say, look, this is not done in our name, this is not for us, and we will not take this. And let the even if it's civil disobedience, let it start from there. And let Tinubu's admin know that, look, you can't just wake up, come up with an idea that you think it will fly and expect the normal thing where after a few days of news cycle, then it becomes yesterday's news. But we shall see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olatunde. I'll quickly pass the mic to Henry. Henry, where do we go from here? responding to Ariwa's question.
Mindset. Nigerians need to step out. We are too, I won't say we're cowardly. We need to step out. Dr. Odinkalu said something, trying to place some blames on PDP, especially their lawmakers in the National Assembly, since the APC does not have the required two-third majority in both houses, the need for them to stand. Doctor, this is the same PDP that up to 6 of their governors are in bed with Wike. There is no clear-cut, what do you call it, to say, oh, it is the PDP that this. Who are you even dealing with as PDP? Is it the Fubara PDP? Is it the Damagun PDP? Or is it the other people's PDP? We have been, see, Tinubu is a game player. Immediately he assumed office, he looked at the people that could, give him headache and just made everybody happy. Made everybody. Look at the governors. Under Obasanjo, you had sitting governors that were daily attacking the president. Under Jonathan, the same thing. But under Tinubu, apart from Bala Mohammed or Bauchi, nobody else has been able. And these are people with immunity. There is no leadership for the political class in helping to give citizens the needed push to be able to give a bit of challenge to them. So we are left on our own. And we must see, if this River State mess stands, guys, forget 2027. Forget it. All this one we are saying Peter Obi article story. Because the same hand will be dealt to the electoral system. The same hand will be dealt to Nigerians. These guys, number one is they are brazen. They are very, very brazen. And the reason why they are brazen is because nobody is giving them a fight in defense of democracy. Nobody. There is no opposition. Nobody. Okay. Yesterday, when Peter Obi tweeted about the youth copper girl, there was something he wrote that people didn't see. How he is daily being intimidated and harassed. That's the definition of the people we are dealing with. They intimidate you, they harass you, they do whatever. One will have thought that a Tinubu who allegedly fought for democracy will have political prisoners in detention under him as the president of Nigeria. Who will have thought? Who will have thought? So, to answer your question directly, the way forward is a fight back. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Henry, for your submission. Umar Sani, what is the way forward?
Mindset, I see, even in our discourse, sometimes we help in emboldening the Tinubu government and show them with so much encomiums as to their strategy, their ability, Margaret Thatcher used to say something, that the terrorist is only excited if you give him that advantage of oxygen of publicity. Once he does something and it is not reported, he boils within. He is disturbed. Here we come to the platform and we say Tinubu is a master strategist. By 2027, he will just walk away with the title, and so forth and so on. So they are listening to. And if that is the view of Nigerians that we are going to walk away, then let us use it. We are supposed to point out some of the things that he's doing that is wrong, but yet we are emboldening him. We are, we are telling Nigerians, if it is, with the way this is the one. No, that is very improper. The issue is state of emergency in Rivers State. What we should be concerned about is one, whether that state of emergency is justified or not, whether there is an infringement of our laws as to the state of emergency. What should be done to counter this type of emperor-like or dictatorship when a president comes and addresses the nation and blames everything on his governor? And we know the story, we know everything, but he's telling us another story which we don't know. He's telling us that Fubara destroyed River State asset. Fubara did this, Fubara did that. I gave Fubara advice he refused to take. And so he is now angry. Since the man refused to take, let me just remove him. He did after the Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court has already ruled on this matter. And the Supreme Court has said, if you don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, then you will not be given money. And the man has come out to say, I will comply. He has dissolved the local government councils. This is one. He has recognized the Amaule as the speaker. And all other members, all other addition are there. All other members are there as members. Then he has presented the budget. The House says no, they don't. He will present it another time. And when he gave Wednesday, before the Wednesday, they said they have adjourned sine die. These are all parts of measures to implement the Supreme Court judgment. Yet, Tinubu came out and was saying that he was doing this and doing that, and then we were clapping for him and saying what he said. Well, what? Again, something happened yesterday, or is it today or yesterday? Something happened, at the Gokana and some other places where our national asset was attacked. The person the president is blaming is the governor. He said the governor didn't do anything. Now, if a national asset in which the federal government has given a contract for people to protect that asset, at least Alhaji Asari Dokubo has said when Tinubu met him, he said whether he's interested in pipeline contract, and he said, I'm not interested, but I will help them. There are people who have been assigned to protect our pipelines, and the incidences happen on those pipelines. It didn't happen in any town. It didn't happen in any place. There was no any. It was in those places where federal government has given money for security of those pipelines. And then those things happen. And then he said the governor didn't do anything. And we're not even talking about that. What is the governor supposed to do? Governors have always complained that they are not the chief security officers of their respective states. It is only a title which they have. But in essence, they have no control over the police. They don't have control over the army. They don't have control over all the security agencies in Nigeria. If a governor, there is a problem and he invites the army or the GOC will say, okay, I will have to confirm from headquarters whether I should do it or not. So what can the governor do? Or he should go there by himself and go and protect the thing, and so they will shoot him? Or what is he expected to do? And then where we try to pass the buck as citizens, we try to pass the buck. We look for political parties and make them scapegoats. Political parties, they are useless. They are this, they are that, they are that. They are supposed to do this, then they didn't do it. If they are not, this political party is this. In this country, what are we supposed to do to maintain law and order? Are we supposed to come out face to face and fight the government like a guerrilla warfare before people know that we are doing something? Or if we are not fighting government like a guerrilla warfare, are we supposed to go to court? We all agree here that the courts have been compromised. There is no suit you can file at the Federal High Court that Justice Oho and his colleagues will, if it is against Tinubu or against Wike, that you will get any judgment in your favor. Perhaps the Court of Appeal could be a little bit more circumspect. But even then, when the matter is sensitive, that woman is involved, you have lost at the Court of Appeal. Now coming to the Supreme Court, that one is like is one arm of government of Tinubu, the Supreme Court, because we have a saying that, when a witch cries and a child dies in the morning, you know where it is coming from. Everything that Tinubu said today, you can see it in the judgment of the Supreme Court. He was merely telling us what he told the justices and what they should do. And that is what they did in that judgment. Now, where do we now take our problem to? Political parties. Okay, if political parties for 3 weeks, they perpetually protest with the way Tinubu is going and with the way Wike is, would they change their mind on anything? It was Wike who said that if they remove Fubara, nothing will happen. And that is the view of Mr. President. Nothing will happen. Now, if there is something that will happen, how does it happen? Is it protest that will solve the problem? If we come out to protest for 1 week or for 2 weeks, will Tinubu change his mind? We did protest, don't forget, Nigerians protested for 10 days, from August 1st to August 10th. Did he do anything? We protested on the key economic indicators, those things that are disturbing us. In fact, he even worsened it by his speech.
Sorry, Omar, if I may come in now. So what do you suggest we do?
We are in a cul-de-sac mindset. When you are in a cul-de-sac, anywhere you go, you are sure you are not going to succeed. So what do? Perhaps the only thing now remaining for Huwara to do is to just ignore the broadcast. He cannot be removed by a broadcast because he was not elected by a broadcast. He has a mandate of the Rivers people, and nobody can suspend him. The president is not a supervisor of governors. He has no powers to supervise states and then remove governors and install somebody. Why was the president very adamant in the local government reform when he said that all local government chairmen must be elected? Secondly, that their monies should be given to them directly. They should have autonomy. What does he mean by autonomy? If they have autonomy, which means that they should be able to exercise their powers, their constitutional powers themselves. And then a governor cannot have autonomy. He cannot. The president will be breathing down his neck because he doesn't like him or because his state is a very important component in his calculation for 2027. I think we are in a very dicey situation, and we can only use the worst case scenario. The people who are affected must lead us before we can now help them. If Fubara will come out and refuse this thing, then people will now support him. Because once the Rivers people see that Fubara is saying, I don't support this, I don't agree with this, it is unconstitutional, null and void, and of no effect, Rivers people will come out and say, yes, it is of course inconsequential. We will not take anybody that will be coming, they will send to come and rule us from somewhere by proxy. We will not agree. Our resources will be stolen through that means. But if we are going to rely on all the institutions that we have on ground, I'm sorry, those institutions will not work. And there is no amount of protest, no amount of protest, no amount of shouting, no amount of that will save us. Now, secondly, the National Assembly that we are now looking at. How will the National Assembly be mustered to have conscience, to vote according to their conscience, and not according to the money that the man is giving them? Because when he came in, he started distributing money. He was distributing monies that people were not even asking him to distribute. The judiciary were giving 300 billion or something additionally to do whatever they like. Their salaries, without even asking, was increased and doubled, and so many other things, just so that they make them subservient to his instruction. Now, the National Assembly is almost the same. It is not only PDP that is in the National Assembly. We are seeing Labour Party. They are all decamping to APC because the man is giving them money. So don't blame a political party. A political party can give instruction. Look, when it comes to vote, when it comes vote this, when it goes to voting, they will not refuse to listen to the political party because they know that they will get something. Money will be given to them, so they will not listen to what their party is saying. I remember there was the normal procedure for appointment of minority groups in the National Assembly was that it was the political parties with the highest minority that will give the minority leader. But APC changed it during the current chief of staff, Dr. Tinubu. They changed it. What happened was that the minority leader was selected by him. He said he will not take any minority leader position from the party, that he is the one who will select minority leader. Everything they are changing and doing it the way they want. So it is not only about Rivers it is about the institutions of Nigeria. How do we protect our institutions? How do we, if we are talking about election, if we are talking about, are you sure that we will have an electoral act that will satisfy us? The
Okay.
electoral act will be done in such a manner that it will satisfy his own interest. Look at the passage of a national anthem. A national anthem, because the president said, I enjoy the former national anthem better than this one. Within 1 week, they have already changed the national anthem, the National Assembly. So where do we go? All the institutions have been compromised. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Umar. I've listened to what you've said. So in everything that you said, you still agreed with what the other speakers said, because at the end of the day, it would appear that the president is in charge of everything. So when people say he's in charge of everything, 2027 might not work, they're not saying anything wrong, because you said we have protested and they didn't yield any result. But there's something else that you said. Respectfully, I will respectfully disagree with you. When you talked about that, it's not about the political parties. It has to be about political party. Sim Fubara ran on the platform of the PDP. So if there's any political party that will champion this, it has to be the PDP. So when we say it's not about the political party, I don't think we are being fair, because he ran on the political, platform of the PDP. So the PDP should be the ones in full front, then the other Nigerians will follow suit. Right? That's my view on it anyway. But thank you very much, Umar, and we should be rounding up. But quickly, let me pass the mic to Barrister Effiong. Where do we go from here, sir?
Well, there was a time in my life I used to have some modicum of optimism in this country. But sadly, every day my hope is shattered. I'm not sure if Nigeria is redeemable. Big friend, the late Pius Adesame, in his one of his last article, I think his last article in This Day, if I'm not mistaken, or Tribune, titled Injury Time. He wrote an article shortly before the Ethiopian crash where he lost his life, and he said something very philosophical. He said Nigeria is going through a phase where that he has come to. In fact, he basically admitted that look, he does not see change, at least not anytime soon, or not in his lifetime. But he concluded by saying that look, we have to make effort, we have to speak, we have to take a different position just for the sake of archaeology, so that in the future, when archaeologists will excavate the place known as Nigeria, they will see, remnants of dissent that he had expressed. He was speaking philosophy, but it made a lot of sense. Why I'm saying that is because in Rivers State there is NLC, there is TUC, there is the NUT, the Nigerian Union of Teachers. We have NBA, we have NURTW, we have all sort of unions and organizations in Rivers State. They all have branches in Rivers State. What is their position on what has happened? I'm happy that the NBA, the current NBA that I belong, the current NBA leadership has issued a statement unmistakably disavowing what has happened. Tinubu, funny enough, it's just a ridiculous proclamation. Can you even imagine him saying, for example, that the judiciary will not be affected? So meaning he could have even suspended the judges. I mean, this man is just making a mockery of himself. I'm mentioning those bodies because, like I said, contrary to what Umar is saying, PDP has lost its identity as a political party. So let's not depend on the PDP. We've all agreed on that. Let's not depend on the so-called opposition lawmakers. We've agreed on that. People are saying let's not depend on the courts. Me, I don't want to go into that. But how about the civil society? If the NLC says, oh, because it is the responsibility of the governor to take care of the welfare of workers, the governor has been suspended, the welfare of workers is threatened, does the NLC have the right to ask their members to stay at home? Will they endorse what has happened? Because the kind of reaction that will force Tinubu's hand to reverse this decision, I'm not seeing any indication that any of that will happen. I think, quite sadly, at some point, we may have to really have a conversation on whether Nigerians are conquered people or not. It is left for the only situation where this decision will be reversed is if Nigerians, particularly people of Rivers State, reject it in their millions. That is the only way. I don't see this being solved through the institutions, unfortunately. Even the options of constitutional reference. If you go to the Federal High Court now, I can tell you they will use interlocutory appeals. If the Federal High Court rules against Tinubu, it will go to the Court of Appeal. They will fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. Before they come back, the 6 months will have elapsed. So, will the people of Rivers State and what Nigerians will put up to this? Only Nigerians and people in Rivers State can reverse this. The so-called the impostor that is being announced as sole administrator, I don't even know what that means. Will he now give directive to the head of service? Will he now give directive to civil servants in the state, who will now administer the funds of the state? I don't even understand what the man is talking about. He said he cannot make new law. Can he make gubernatorial appointments? Because under the Constitution, I always draw a distinction between executive and gubernatorial powers. Executive powers are exercisable by members of the executive, superintended by the president and governor. The presidential and gubernatorial powers are exclusive to the president and governor under the Constitution. Can a sole administrator assume gubernatorial functions? Can he make appointments that are exclusive to the governor? Can he exercise powers that only a governor can exercise, that even a deputy governor cannot? including power of prerogative of mercy for these 6 months, because all Tinubu said was there should be no new laws. So who was going to? I mean, it's just funny, but he said he can make regulations. So I'm saying, given the impacts that this will have on the workers, if tomorrow, because I think as we are talking, the military has already been deployed to enforce this. If tomorrow the workers in Rivers State say they are staying at home, the NUT says teachers are not safe, they don't know what is going on, everybody should stay at home, and schools are closed, markets are not open, and the sole administrator is the only one that finds himself on the streets. At least if the vast majority come out to reject this, maybe that will have some meaningful outcome. But to say that, oh, let PDP do this, yeah, speaking the useless part, a party that Wike is still a member, a party that the national chairman is still listening to Wike, a party that the PDP Governors Forum has not issued a statement till now. You can show me if I'm wrong. As the PDP Governors Forum even issued a statement, PDP is dead. PDP is only existing in name. As a political party, PDP is dead. It is useless. It is basically useless. It's not just ineffective. PDP is dead. Let's just agree to that. That the Governors Forum of the PDP, one of their members has just been removed through what looks like a coup. They have not issued a statement. I'm not saying they should even summon an emergency meeting. Because by now, tomorrow morning, I would have expected, in a country that has the position, that all the PDP governors will be meeting tomorrow morning to take a position. I'm sorry, I've taken a position as an activist never to cry more than the bereaved. That's the position. So the man you are fighting for, Fubara, is he willing to fight for himself? Have you not seen the statement he issued? He's still as cowardly as he has been from the beginning of this crisis. So maybe there is a fait accompli. We have to wait for the 6 months. When that has elapsed, Tinubu may renew it for another 6 months. And then by 1 year, we will know what Tinubu wants to do. So sorry, I'm not sounding optimistic. But optimism at this point may just be evidence of, mental incapacity, inability to appreciate the reality that stares us in the face. That is just all I'm saying, that only the people of Rivers State can speak to the issue in an impactful way. And I'm not optimistic that even the people of Rivers State will respond to this appropriately. We will talk on social media, we'll file, maybe some people want to go to court and file cases, but you can only go to the Federal High Court, by the way. You can't go to the State High Court to challenge this. It has to be Federal High Court. Okay? Which division of the Fed, who is going to file the suit? If NBA goes to court, does NBA have jurisdiction? Local standard? Will they allow NBA to bring the suit? Will political parties bring the action? Will PDP file a lawsuit tomorrow to say that a governor elected on his platform for 4 years has been wrongly removed? Because the PDP should have locus, since it is their governor. Will the so-called national chairman direct the legal advisor to file a lawsuit tomorrow to reverse this? If Fubara cannot fight this, I don't see any of this happening realistically. So this is the web of darkness, sadly, that has enveloped our political space as a country. So, sorry, if you're expecting me to sound hopeful, there is little or no hope by my estimation.
All right, thank you very much. I'm not expecting you to sound hopeful. I wanted you to be honest to yourself, which you have actually done. Umar, let me ask you a question, Umar. What happens to the local government election? Where do we go from here? Do you think that, what happens? Let me put it this way. What happened to the local government election in Rivers State?
Well, from if the governor is removed, it does not still invalidate the local government election, since the institution that is supposed to run the local government election is still in existence, which is the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. Unless, of course, the administrator will now, prescribe them. But with the way he was given, the assignment he was given, he can not make any new law, because prescribing them will amount to making a new law. So he cannot make a new law, which means those institutions will continue to function and the timetable they have given will continue as stipulated.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, because I'm asking questions based on what people are asking on the platform, on my I think we have come to the conclusion of this tonight's space. We still have about 48 requests. I can't see them. I wish I can be able to see everybody who's requesting. For some reason, Prof. Odinkano dropped and Henry Shield dropped. Omar, are you able to see the other speakers?
I'll be able to bring Iman up now.
I can't see anybody. I can only see Dr. Uda.
On the speaker section.
I can't see him. So he's on the speaker. Hi, Iman, can you hear me? Okay. I mean, you said Iman is on.
Maybe
I can't see him.
Maybe I can see him here. Even he's next to Enebehe. Iman.
But I can't. Okay, he's not responding to you. So that means
he's not responding at all.
Okay, what he needs to do, he might need to leave the space and try to rejoin again. As we're waiting for him to rejoin quickly, Dr. Uda, you have the mic.
Yes, my sake. Thank you. Let me talk about the solution, since we are at the solution now. I would say that I completely agree with what Professor Chidi Odinkalu said. This is not a judicial problem. This is a political one. Just like my brother Inibe just said, that the Governors Forum would have met. I think they should have met tonight. The urgency of the matter does not even warrant them waiting till tomorrow morning. Why do you wait till tomorrow morning? Your colleague that was duly elected as a governor like you has been removed by a president who lacks the power to do that. I mean, we have all discussed about the procedures of how to remove a sitting governor, right? Through impeachment, which they clearly do not have, because the chief judge was not with them. It was Nyesom Wike that appointed that chief judge. He's his own man, but he's no longer with him. So they tried to bring out a case of age falsification to see how they can remove him and put the person that will help them with the procedure. So clearly he doesn't have, this is a clear case of political calculation. They have calculated it, that they don't have the numbers or they don't have all the things in place to go proceed with the impeachment. They now are playing the state of emergency card, which still cannot work if the opposition is doing its job. PDP, that's why I'm not even going to call LP, because PDP has most senators. They have 38 senators. They have about 118 House of Reps members. They have, even without the Labour Party, PDP has the number for them not to get the 2/3 as it stands to conclude this thing. What are they doing about it? My brother Omar, I'm sorry to say this. The PDP has failed. They are dead. As a party, we are dead. Are you going to tell me that this deliberation, because the House has just announced that they have received the letter from the president, so are you going to tell me that it's going to go on the floor tomorrow and they will muzzle out 2/3 and remove an elected governor of a state? Oh my God. And the man that is a central character to all this thing, his name was not even mentioned. All the blame was laid on the governor, when this thing could have simply been resolved by the president calling Wike to order. That is what would have resolved this thing. In fact, when the issue happened in Lagos State, he called them. He resolved it. Look, I expect the people of Rivers State to defend the mandate that they gave to their governor. If by tomorrow, or from this night, they are not, the people have not taken over the government house, their own government house, because they own the government house. If they have not taken over the government house, taken over the street of Rivers State, taken over even the airport, taken over everywhere, then I think they didn't elect him. They did not elect him. This is not anything to leave it to the judiciary. We know how it's going to end. Forget about the judiciary. Nobody is talking about the judiciary here. We are talking about a political problem created by politicians, created by a man that ruled for 8 years and he's not enough. I don't know what he left in Moscow House, or is it they call it, what is it now, that Rivers State? I don't know what he left there, that he doesn't want to leave the state to be in peace. Oh my God! See, so I think, Mama said, look, I think from what I understand, I think the lawyers have said everything. They have broken it down. He still remains the governor of the state. He has his full immunity for 4 years. So I don't expect them saying, oh, they are going to maybe arrest him or whatever. No, they cannot. Even the so-called suspension is unconstitutional, is illegal. Okay? So he still needs to be at the forefront too. He needs to be at the forefront. He needs to take his case to the people who elected him. And I also expect other states to join in and help him. Okay? Other state governors should come together, because if this man can do this, Ekiti State is there, Osun State is there. There are other states that this man is very much sorry, I said Ekiti, Osun State, sorry, because this is another state that is very much interested in. So the PDP governors, it is in their own interest to stand up and fight for their own colleague. Because if they allow this man to be removed like that, like we have watched this thing like a movie for the past how many months, we have watched it every day from the initial problem that we saw where there was that fire incident in the House of Assembly, which the president now is even blaming him. I don't know when they conducted an investigation and they concluded that it was the governor that put fire in the house. I saw the speech, I listened to him and I read it again just to be sure that what he said or what he was speaking on that presidential broadcast is what I heard. He didn't even mention any blame, apportion any blame to the man that is his own appointee. He did not even say anything. And then he laid all the blame on this man and now decided to declare a state of emergency and bring in an administrator that nobody casted a vote for him. So my mindset, just like I've said, tomorrow is when I will know whether truly people of Rivers State had elected this man.
All right.
This man, yes, mindset. So this is my own stand. You asked for a solution. My own solution is that the people should take over their state and restore law and order in their own state. Over to you, mindset. Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Uda, for your submission. So I've just got an information coming through from People's Gazette. It said soldiers hold Fubara families hostage at Rivers Governor's Residence. This is the latest information I've just gotten right now. It's out there for everyone who is interested to go and read on it. It said that the soldiers are holding Fubara's family hostage. But I'm pleased to say we have Ima on the platform. Ima, good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Mindset. I don't know if you can hear me very well.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Honestly, today it's a sad day. It's a very, very sad day. For many of us who have followed politics, who have spoken in defense of democracy, and have defended democracy to the best of our own little ability. Today is a sad day. I wanted to ask, because I'm aware that the PDP governors are currently meeting. They're having a Zoom meeting, so I'm aware they're currently meeting. But I wanted to ask Barrister first, maybe before I make my own submission. Is it possible for PDP governors to go to the Supreme Court and ask for a proper interpretation of what has happened today? Myself, I don't know if you heard me, sorry.
Yeah, I think the question was for Barrister Effiong, right?
Yes. Yeah. Before I will make my own.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not a barrister, so I think Barrister Effiong will respond. Barrister, you had the question, right? His mic is on, but it appears it's not responding. Is it from my end? Sorry, can anybody hear him?
Yes, I think it's from his end.
Okay, Barrister Effiong, your mic is on, but we are not able to hear you. Ima did ask a question. I'm not sure what the problem is. Okay, Ima, since he's not responding yet, can you please continue with your submission? Then as soon as he's free to respond, they will bring him back. Thank you.
No, he can ask
Okay,
Henry, since we have Henry on the platform.
Okay, if there's any lawyer, I just wanted to find out first before I make my submission.
Okay, if you want to repeat the question again, we have another question.
Sorry, myself, I've just chipped in, but that's fine.
Okay, Henry, go ahead if you want to respond to that question, please. Thank you.
So Ima, I understand the purpose of your question. It's a very interesting question you're asking. So the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. What it means is that it has jurisdiction to hear matters at first instance, and a matter by a state government against the federal government, for instance, or by the National Assembly against the federal government is one of those matters. So any of the PDP governors can activate the machinery of the state, say the Attorney General, and they can fast track even Fubara himself. They can take matters to the Supreme Court, and it goes there as a matter of first instance, so that it doesn't have to go through the usual hall of Federal High Courts, Court of Appeal, and all that. I think that's the hub of your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me just make my own submission myself. Can I go ahead?
Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good evening, Ogasani and Doc and Harry and every other person. Ariwa, I greet every other person on the platform. So I have listened with keen interest.
Hello, Mike. Can you hear
A
me
lot
now?
of people.
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, Ima, can you hold your thought for a minute, sir? Barrister Efron, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. I think my network, I had a glitch.
Okay.
I've listened to my learned friend, his opinion. Mine is not so definite. The reason is because for you to activate the regional jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, there are two things that must be present. Because that subject matter, two things are determinative of it. Number one is the party. Number two is the presence of dispute. There has to be a dispute, okay? A dispute between the parties that are capable of activating that jurisdiction. And I said, look at section 231 of the Constitution on the regional jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. You see who the parties are. Then look at there's a law called Supreme Court Additional Jurisdiction Act that further expanded that original jurisdiction. Now, this matter is, the nature of this dispute seems to be circumscribed to Rivers State. Okay? What has happened is that the president has removed a governor of a particular state. Does that necessarily amount to a dispute between the federal government, right? It's a dispute between the federal government and the state, by the way, not between governors. The dispute between a governor and the president, I'm not sure it's covered by the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. I'm not sure, but I know that the dispute between a state, okay, and the federal government or the federation, in quotes, is within the original jurisdiction. Now, is there a dispute? The Supreme Court has, in plethora of cases, offered perspective and definition on what amounts to a dispute within the purview and contemplation of section 231. I think the best bet for me is every legal option should be pursued. I'm not going to dismiss such an action. Let them try it and put the argument. It is better to have as many possible legal challenges to this as possible. Let the one that will scale through on the merits scale through. But I am not optimistic that this is possible, because that would mean that the governors of the PDP states will instruct the attorney generals to bring a joint action at the Supreme Court, so that if the president can remove the governor of Rivers, then he can also remove the governors of those states. Then in that sense, one can say there is a dispute. But on the other hand, the matter is geographical. It's limited to Rivers. So it's a yes or no thing. It can be argued either way, but my recommendation is let it be done. I have told you personally what I feel Fubara should do. By now, his lawyers should be putting the papers together. Approach the Federal High Court. I don't think he can go directly to the Supreme Court now, because there is no Attorney General. And contrary to your expectation, I can tell you, Tinubu will use all military might to enforce this order. Somebody was speaking about local government election. Sorry, Umar, there will be no local government election. You are dealing with people that are sophisticated manipulators. Before they took this decision, they have objectives they want to achieve. One of which is to stop that local government election. Whoever the so-called administrator is, you may be seeing a memo tomorrow to the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission stopping them from going ahead. They will not allow it. Go and write it down. I'm ready to bet on this. They will not allow local government election for the 6 months. There are certain things that will happen. There is a part of that proclamation of the speech that you should pay attention to. Tinubu said the sole administrator that no new laws should be made. Okay, as if a sole administrator is now having both legislative and judicial and executive power. That is part of the reason why this is just insane. For those who are saying he has the power to do it, because it will imply that we now have a fusion of both legislative and executive powers. That will clearly offend the spirit and letters of section of the separation of powers under section 4, 5, and 6. You cannot have legislative power and executive power exercised by one entity or authority under a constitutional system. It is impossible. It is simply impossible. The best bet that you can have, is through subsidiary legislations. So all I'm trying to explain, I'm trying to give context to you so that you will understand all these things. That let all possible actions be filed, both at the Supreme Court and at the Federal High Court. Forget about State High Court. I saw somebody saying Fubara should get injunction. There is no State High Court that has jurisdiction on the matter. It will be a waste of time. And with what has happened in the defection case, my suspicion is that judges of the State High Court are being circumspect. You know, the way our country is, everybody will be careful. So that is my recommendation, sir. Let the PDP governors try, instruct the attorney generals to file the action at the Supreme Court. Let us see what the Supreme Court will say on the question of jurisdiction. But Fubara himself should be the first person to even file the action. Then PDP as a party, I strongly believe, as the locus. So before Fubara first, PDP itself should go to court, because it is their mandate that has been truncated, mandate in quotes, that has been truncated for 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much, Barrister Effiong. Umar, please, before you respond, can we please have Umar back, because he just
No, my own is not a long thing mindset. It's just to ask Barrister Effiong. I don't want him to go. Then you now come and ask me to ask him again. It's quick. It's a quick one. Barrister, my own is you. I was when mindset asked me whether there will be local government election. Mine was not speculative. I did not add 2 and 2 together and say that the probability is that there was a machination that was put on ground. What I said is that going by what that the institution is on ground and the timetable is there and the mandate given to the administrator. On the basis of that, I made my submission. Now, if there is a new thing that will come up due to manipulations and what have you, I don't want to make it as a subject of speculation. So I'm only telling you what I believe is natural and what ought to have happened. If that is not what happened, that's a different thing.
Sorry, Umar, please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you, my church. Thank you, Barrister. Like I was saying earlier on, I've listened to a lot of people speak, and I can understand the frustration when they say the things they've said. But I'm still a bit optimistic that somehow, President Tinubu might not get to third majority, probably in both, the National Assembly, both the House and the Senate. I am a bit optimistic because this is a real constitutional issue that can affect them tomorrow. And I don't know, I just feel very optimistic about it, that it will be a bit difficult for the president to get to third. I know a lot of people will say, oh, this National Assembly can get anything, the president can get anything he wants. But like I said, I'm a bit optimistic. And the reason why I said so is I have seen National Assembly stand up for certain things that I feel is just. I feel that this National Assembly will likely stand up for something that is just, as it relates maybe tomorrow or next tomorrow, when the issue will be presented to them on the floor. And like I said, this is a constitutional issue. This is not an issue of Natasha or any other person. This is something that can affect them tomorrow. So I'm very optimistic. I don't want to just come here and say, oh, I don't think the National Assembly would not do this. At least we've placed call to some National Assembly members. And I can say for a fact, by the grace of God, I am using by the grace of God, I'm a bit optimistic. I don't know how he's going to do it, but I'm a bit optimistic because there are a good number of people of good conscience, even both in APC. So this is not a matter of PDP or Labour Party or even APC. This is a matter that the president doesn't have the constitutional power to suspend a sitting democratically elected governor. He's the same president that was championing for true democracy as it relates to local government. And then you come up overnight and then you overthrown, or probably you suspend the sitting governor. So I'm very optimistic. I'm saying this cautiously, but I am very optimistic that he might not get two-third majority in both, the House and the Senate to do what he has done. Like I said, this is a constitutional matter, and you never can tell. Even the governors, some of the governors will kick against it. Because tomorrow you could just be on the wrong side of the president, whether you're an APC or PDP, and this same thing will happen. And the precedent will already be set. And of course, the president will do what he did. There was no reason for a state of emergency to have happened in Rivers State. Nobody had lost his life. We've seen states where they've had serious insecurity, and the president has not even issued said any proclamation as it relates to state of emergency. And all of a sudden, because you have interest in Rivers State and you want to remove a democratically elected governor. So, mindset, I'm here to say that I'm a bit optimistic. I'm not going to come here and just say, oh, I know there are National Assembly members that will sell themselves, but I know there are National Assembly members of good conscience. So I am optimistic. I am very, very optimistic. Very optimistic. So I will yield my mindset.
All right, thank you very much, Ima. I hope everything works well for you. You're one of those individuals that had the courage to call Fubara out when he wasn't doing what you said he should be doing, and focusing more on the media. And things have turned out this way. But I wish and I pray that things work out the way you want it to be turn out. Thank you very much for joining us. We have a lady here, Julie Adaya. I think I got the name right. Miss Dyer, can you hear me? Good evening, or good morning, rather. Am I still audible?
Yes,
All right,
so
We are very audible.
Okay, Julie, can you hear me? Lawyer, singer, Christian. Okay, it appears that she's not responding. So when she's ready to speak, somebody should, if anybody knows, you can see the lady on the platform, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry. My mic was muted.
All right,
Hello?
good morning. Yeah, good morning,
Good
and thank
morning.
you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm only just getting, thank you for this really interesting forum. I mean, it's been very instructive. And I particularly loved the way, I think his name was Maxwell, the way he compartmentalized everything and gave us, he threw in for me a lot of clarity. Because I knew something just didn't quite add up. And then when he came on, he really made it clear what was missing about impeaching the governor, sitting voted governor. I'm from River State, and I've been traumatized all day because I think the people are being taken for granted, and I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not British England law, so I'm not very conversant with Nigerian constitution, about these fine details. But I think from all most of you have said here, it's quite clear that there's been some act of ultra-vires here, and it really shouldn't stand. I'm hoping that people of Rivers State, by the crack of dawn, if not even now, would have mobilized themselves to, is it Occupy, stand in front of Government House, which I think it's Brick House. Somebody was trying to remember the name. Be in front of the gate and all around the back of it, the Secretariat, the airports, the ports, every landmark. site that affects the government to protest this. I think it's time for the people to rise up and have their say heard that they voted this man, and nobody can lay claim on his mandate. He's a elected official, and we've never really seen this sort of thing happen before. And like you said, if he tested his power with Sim, because now I'm beginning to think that there's hierarchy among even the governors, because in the first place, Sim Fubar has been tossed around so unfairly, distracted, and detracted from what he's supposed to be doing for the state. So I hope this would be a turning point. I'm glad somebody quoted Gani Fayemi here, and said, those who um, work with dictatorship get consumed by it. You know, this is really, really this is a very unacceptable thing that has happened, and I'm so happy to see that Nigerians are all across board. From the north, a lot of voices have come. I even tried to post something. Somebody wrote, I think he's a PDP stalwart, a northerner. After breaking his fast, apparently was very disconcerted when he came across the news. He saw he had a lot of missed calls, and people from the southwest, where Mr. President comes from, are very unhappy with it. Mind you, these people are very politically wise, and they just know when things are not right. They're not people who stay quiet because somebody is one of them. We all know that Mr. President lost the elections even in Lagos. So Port Harcourt, where he won, why should he take the people for granted? Has he considered how we feel? Has he considered whether we don't want the governor? This has gone on for too long, and maybe it had to come. This might be the straw that has broken the camel's back for it to be the turning point. This might just be the tipping point. So, I had some train of thoughts and some things I even wanted to ask, but through the discussion, I've gathered, quite a bit. And the last speaker said he's confident that apparently I thought it was the House of Assembly, the State House of Assembly, who needs to do the impeaching, the vote or whatever. But he said something about the National Assembly. There are men of good conscience there, and when it comes to something critical, I think they will rise to the occasion and they will do the right thing. So, that has really made me a bit more optimistic, because, like I said, I was traumatized when I heard this. Um, well, I didn't know I was going to be called up. I had my thoughts together, but by the time it came, I'd it looks like we're rounding up. Anyway, however, thank you so much for this. I think I honestly, as I'm here, I feel like taking a flight to Riverside and ask people, hey, are you sleeping? Let's get out there. We can't allow this happen. The people need to have a say. There's something about the people's power. Oh, there was something somebody wrote. His name is Dr. Umar Ado. Just yesterday, he posted something and he talked about the concept of departmentalism. Yeah, it was very interesting. So I even responded and thanked him for it. He talked about, with it, he interrogated a situation whereby was it something about the judiciary being binding on all the arms of government, which somebody here too has also said mentioned on it about the what's it called, the balances and checks of the arms of government. So that should come in play. Well, that's departmentalism is it's something about and also a precedent not really being binding altogether, or not being binding on all the arms of government. And the thing is that rather than the judiciary to have that enforcement power, once they say you're gone, it should be like they're more like the arbiters who just they recommend. They're more like the advice, right? And then the people, whoever is affected, the party affected, should have the self-respect to act accordingly, or the arm should have the self-respect to act accordingly. And when you wrote that, I looked at it and I said, well, on the surface, if you look at this, it looks like a vehicle that's just going to convey chaos, right? But on a deeper note, it might be the necessary ingredients to trigger the people into realizing that they do have a power, and to use the power of the people. Because if the judiciary recommends something disinterestedly, according to the spirit of the letter, then the people would be able to, say, yes, well, this is the right thing. Now, if this is the way it happens, since they don't have, the judiciary wouldn't have enforcement power, the other two arms might not find any need to incentivize them to, give them monetary or whatever, sort of corrupt their judgment. So since they don't even have the power to enforce. And so the people might be able to use that disposition to appropriate the necessary steps to ensure that the consensual action is taken. So yeah. So anyway, thank you. The last speaker gave me hope. Let's really hope that the Senate will do the right thing, the National Assembly will do the right thing, and this won't go out of hand, because it's starting a very bad, trend. So if it gets River State, which is supposed to be a very solid state, I mean, it means many other states that are so dependent on federal government allocations and things like that would just be a matter of, would just be easy peasy. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity to partake in this discussion. I'm done.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Dyer, for your wonderful submission. I'll quickly pass the mic to Barrister Henry. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, my sense. Just to confirm, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, yeah. So just I like the fact of what Ima said. It might give quite a number of us hope. And just to draw attention to what my learned senior friend, Barrister Effiong, said, I think it is important that Fubara explores all the remedies available to him. Those of you who have your constitutions can look at section 232. It's pretty straightforward, to the extent that if there's a dispute between the federation and the states, that you can approach the Supreme Court straight, because the Supreme Court has what he refers to as original jurisdiction. And for me, I think this is critical, because I cannot fathom anything that looks like a bigger dispute in law against a state than what Tinubu has done. And it is also important to say that what we're seeing now is a gradual erosion of our democratic values. Personally, I think after tomorrow, I would know whether there's going to be, hope for our federalism and democracy in the long run. Because this stuff is something that has been building for a time now. You'll recall that some time ago, when Buhari used an ex parte order to remove the CJN, people were quiet. What he did then was an emasculation of the judiciary. And so much so that today, everybody is saying go to court, but deep down we're like, well, is it not the court that some of these people have bragged that they bought, or the court that a senator walked up in front of national TV and said his wife was approached by members of the Senate there and he facilitated their return to the Senate? So these are the things that are happening. And you find that many times when these things happen, even some of the people on the space today, some of the people who we see, were giving some form of philosophical support to what some of these people were doing. Buhari will do XYZ, they'll say Buhari, they'll say Baba, and all the rest. Today, we're reaping the repercussions. And it is time for even associations like the NBA to take the center stage, because at the end of the day, where you have a system that touts to rest on the rule of law, a democratic and federalist system, where you have three arms of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, and they agree or they admit to run with the doctrine of separation of powers. And today we can say that the judiciary has probably less than 10% confidence of the masses. And today we're seeing not just the erosion of federalist principles at the federal government, but we're now beginning to see the federal government step into the powers of the states. What it means in essence is that both the fragile constitution, the fragile democracy we're practicing has no meaning. And if by tomorrow, Rivers State doesn't give Nigeria the hope that some of us are hoping to see in defense of its democratic principles, I dare say that my fear is that things can only get very worse. And I think this is also a very interesting point for Nigerians, because many times we say we're running a federalism, blah, blah. Many people don't understand what it means to run a federalism. The whole construct of a federalism is that component units function virtually independent of the federal government. That's the whole construct. You see, there was a time I made a remark and I said, for instance, if the federal government has powers to or dares make any legislation at all, it ought to be powers that is derived specifically from the exclusive list. Any powers that is not derived from the exclusive list, if the federal government purports to make a law, that law is invalid. Today, what you have is, I give an example, the Cyber Crimes Act. The Cyber Crimes Act is a law where you cannot point to any power in the exclusive list where that law came from. People will tell you, well, it came from telecommunication law. There's a general clause that says, the federal government has incidental ancillary powers. That's a very flawed understanding of federalism as it ought to operate. And that's why we're seeing all this erosion going on. Federal government jumping into powers, purporting to have take on responsibilities that the constitution does not envisage. And today, look at where we are. Tinubu sits down somewhere, having clearly seen what the constitution says about the process for removing a governor, having clearly seen what the constitution said about the process for dissolving a House of Assembly, he purports to remove the governor through extra constitutional means. And I think it's shameful that you still find some people supporting it. But I dare say that why this is very important for us, both for those who can use their voices to, use, through advocacy, throw light on these things, tag human rights societies and international bodies that are monitoring. It's because if we don't survive this stage, it only gets worse. From Buhari till today, things have cascaded and it is getting worse. So this is the point for us to see this as a level where it's either we're going to make progress or we just call a spade and say, you know what, we're not really practicing a democracy. This is more or less an autocracy with democracy sheep clothing. Thank you, Mindset.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister Henry, or Mr. Henry, as you fondly want me to call you. Thank you for your wonderful submission. We still have about 39 requests. I'm not able to see anybody requesting for the mic, and my co-host, Umar Sani, have done his absolutely best to make sure that he brings a lot of people up. But at this stage, we are not able to see more other requests. Umar, please, can you see any other person requesting for the mic?
I think it is now high time for us to close. We have just 104.
Well, my question, did you see anybody requesting for the mic, sir? That was my question, sir. All right, thank you very much. So I've got a lot of messages that it would have been nice to allow people from Rivers State to speak, but the good thing is that we are all Nigerians, and anything that concerns Rivers State concerns each and every one of us. But pleased to say that we had Miss A. Dyer, who is from Rivers State. She has made a very wonderful submission. On that note, we wish that things worked hard for Fubara, and if there's any way Nigerians can come together and help and make sure that the democracy that we all fought hard for survive, this is the time for us not to go back to dark ages. But on that note, I wish everybody well, and I will see you some other time. Enjoy the rest of your morning. Good night. Bye.
la la la